TIKRIT is located about 110 miles or 175 kilometers north of Baghdad, said to be the last stand of Saddam Hussein's regime leadership, but it appears that the American forces are already in the ground and facing what was described by General Tommy Frank, not any resistance. But as you can hear, there was some absolute gunfire going on, so there may not be a lot of resistance as far as General Franks is concerned. He did confirm that U.S. troops are in TIKRIT. The battlefield there has been shaped, as they call it, for the last several days with coalition air power, bombing targets. We saw in Brent Sadler's pictures early this morning that much of the warehouses holding Iraqi military equipment had indeed been hit from the north, but did not see any Iraqi soldiers on the northern side. Apparently, the U.S. Marines moving in from the south, north of Baghdad, and have made their way, according to General Tommy Franks, into TIKRIT. Relitza?
Walking out to come over here to talk to you, I got a report that 6 or 7, in fact, people we had listed as missing. And that's an interesting point, because I don't know that, I know they're in good shape, and I know they're in our hands and under our control now, and that's very good. What I don't know is if they're from the ones we had listed as prisoners of war, or whether they're from the missing category. So in the hours ahead, we'll get better definition, but that's where we stand right now.
Almost everything: ministries, banks, government buildings, hospitals, and even the Iraqi museum, spreading fear and panic among residents of Baghdad. In Al-Karrada neighborhood in Baghdad, residents decided to take matters into their own hands. They erected barricades, carried guns, and stopped the looters from coming into their own neighborhoods. And then they went even one step further. This retired soldier, along with other neighbors, started stopping the looters and confiscating their spoils, like this public bus that was loaded with goodies. Everything is being stored here: medicine and medical equipment, cigarettes, tires, furniture, and loot from the home of Saddam Hussein's personal secretary, Abed Lahmoud. We are sure, the guard here says, the looters told us that's where they got it from. He used the best perfumes. The guard here tells me, you need dollars to get this, and they were the only ones who had it while we were starving. On the door, a note that was sent to the highest religious authority for Iraqi Shiites, asking if looting was okay. The answer came, no way. So people started bringing stuff back to this mosque, from chandeliers to bathroom sinks, and everything has to be registered. No one is to touch it. It will be returned to the new authority in Iraq. But there is none yet, and these Iraqis are trying to figure out how to bring law and order back to Iraq. The Americans can't do it, says this old man. They just don't know how things work here. Yesterday, the Marines came and took our guns away, says one Karrada resident. We tried to explain to them we needed the guns to stop the looters, but they had their guns pointed at us, and our pleas fell on muffed ears. On the streets, there is anger and frustration. Many don't understand why the U.S. Marines won't stop the looters. They're always there watching, but won't do anything about it, says this store owner. They're encouraging the looters. Everyone is fed up. They removed Saddam Hussein, but what is the result? The U.S. Marines say, for now, their priority is to protect the power and water plants and the UN headquarters, but they can't do much more. It really hurts me to see my whole country being looted, says this Iraqi, his pain shared by many here. Rula Amin, CNN, Baghdad.
It would be a pity to let the roses go to waste, for with any luck, this place won't be restored. This was the headquarters of perhaps the regime's most important institution, the Mukhabarat. Literally, the informers, the secret police. A few people are here for some light looting, others just to have a look. This man says he used to be afraid just to drive past here. A guide appears and shows us the scars of his personal experience of the Mukhabarat. He brings us documents, Another illustration of the banality of evil. This one says the Mukhabarat need more and better cars. At a military camp, hundreds have gathered.
Present about 18 years underground and don't see him.
These people believe there's a complex of underground cells here, thousands of them, 5 stories deep. They tear up floors and find nothing. They rifle documents. A mother searches for word of her son. They lead U.S. Special Forces here and there. They think there are prisoners alive down there.
We don't know how to get under the ground to them.
They want bulldozers to come and dig the whole place up, now. They think they've heard voices from below. But it looks more and more like the reflection of their own mindsets, molded by totalitarianism, where you can believe anything or nothing. It's down here. No, that's a pump house. Here are cells, but above ground, clean and empty.
It's always important to show the people that you're here to help them. Take a little time to listen to them.
The soldiers here, there are tunnels leading all the way from the river. But the sad fact is these people don't know this place. They are still in the grip of Saddam Hussein's deadliest weapon, fear. Richard Blystone, CNN, Baghdad.
In that piece, you seem to voice your surprise at how little resistance, at how these military vehicles were abandoned. You were surprised because it was expected that that this would be the last struggle. This would be a very difficult battle for the hometown of Saddam Hussein.
Yes, Relitza, I think having had time to look at our pictures again in the piece of our base here and not being shot at, those shots were aimed to kill us, no doubt about that, not just stop us, but to kill us. That there are 2 sides to this coin. One, the conventional forces, the conventional army, artillery, tanks, dug-in positions, fortifications on the outskirts of TIKRIT itself have been abandoned. The conventional fighting ability of the army had been seriously reduced by years of neglect and underfunding, and then pummeled by coalition airstrikes. That's on the one side. But penetrating as we did for a short time before that fighting erupted, before they tried to shoot us, that inside the city itself, there was still control in the hands of the regime that was still controlling TIKRIT before. Let's not forget, as I didn't at the time, that this was Saddam Hussein's last bastion in terms, at least, of the psychological effect of what people think about the coalition invasion of Iraq, the fall of Baghdad, the fall of the South, the fall of the North, and so on. These in the center were die-hard loyalist Saddam followers. Americans I'd spoken to before getting to TIKRIT this morning were talking about this possibly being the Alamo, the last stand. Now, having seen all those abandoned tanks, all that military hardware, and the devastating impact of many days of coalition airstrikes, I think what we saw were remnants of the regime manning checkpoints, controlling the city, if you like, in case of coalition moves. I don't think there was any ability there to withstand a coalition advance against the city. In fact, we'd heard from some people from TIKRIT that perhaps there was some negotiation with tribal elders to discuss and negotiate a possible peaceful handover of TIKRIT to coalition forces. I think we were ahead of the loop there. We understand from latest reports that US Marines have moved to TIKRIT. Now, it may well be that those Marine forces, maybe we'll hear from embedded journalists from the Marine Corps later on today, but maybe they've begun on the outside of TIKRIT, which is where those abandoned military complexes were, and maybe they'll hold fire, hang off from the very center of TIKRIT, where there are still people who have machine guns, who have other weapons, perhaps heavier weapons, who are prepared to use them against not just journalists, but perhaps coalition forces. My sense is, though, that presence on the ground, a strong coalition presence, may well have the effect of forcing, perhaps without a final battle, because there's no military hardware there to sustain one as far as TIKRIT's concerned, there may well be a peaceful, if not a heavily resistant. We won't see heavy resistance. We may see skirmishing, we may see pockets of resistance, but in terms of an organized, well-fortified, well-planned defense, I don't think there's the force on the ground to do that, and the coalition forces, their presence now possibly building, may well, by force of arms, by show of arms, create a situation of TIKRIT being taken over, but without this heavy battle that people were expecting. Relitza.
Hello, Relitza. Here's another indication that security continues to be a problem in the heart of Baghdad, despite the strong U.S. military presence here. You can see the plume of smoke over here. We're not sure what is burning, but whatever it is a very big fire. We noticed this about half an hour ago, and it continues to rise above the skyline of Baghdad. Not the only fire. There are many fires you tend to see throughout the day. Often they're started by looters or people who cause problems one way or another. The other problem is there's no one to put the fire out. Fire department and civil servants hard to come by at this particular time. We wanted to show you some positive things. The stores have begun to open, at least a few of them, but that creates problems for the civilian population because there are long lines now. People lining up for bread, for milk, for food, for any of the basic supplies that they need. And there is also a problem with money. There is not a lot of money to be had. So how do people buy things? We've noted that on the streets when you talk to people, they come up begging for food or asking for money, saying they need to support their families, that they have not had enough to eat. Protests are also beginning to blossom here in the capital as well. We've seen two of them. One of them took place in front of the Palestinian hotel. Another one was taking place inside or outside of a mosque, actually here in Baghdad. It was an anti-American and anti-Israeli demonstration. At one point, the people were shouting, "Down, down with President Bush." They are clearly, not everyone, I should say, is not happy with or is happy. Let me back up. Not everyone is happy with the presence of U.S. forces here in Baghdad, despite the fact that they may feel liberated from the regime of Saddam Hussein. There used to be a contrast between the security problems and now those trying to get life back to normal, including starting the electricity grid. A major task ahead for the city, but if they get the lights on at night, it could reduce some of the problems with the looting and security. Trying to get the water back on, trying to clean up the streets, trying to at least get Baghdad slowly back on its feet. But it's going to be a long, long job, and right now, it's in its infancy, Relitza.
It is happening all over the city.
Any weapons today? No weapons?
The atmosphere friendly, the questions deadly serious. Several coalition soldiers have died at checkpoints like this at the hand of suicide bombers. A U.S. Marine killed just this week.
Yeah, once you come to a checkpoint, what I would recommend is that you approach slowly, show that you're not armed, in no way threaten the coalition forces here. Proceed carefully and follow the directions of the Marines at the checkpoint.
You guys carrying any weapons today? No weapons. Okay. Can we check your trunk? Okay.
Problem is, most Iraqis don't speak English, don't know the rules, have never encountered checkpoints before, and ignorance on these streets can mean death. The Marines say they are now spreading the word in the Arab media. Iraqis we spoke to are resigned, even accepting of the risks of the road. Some people get nervous when they drive up to the checkpoint, so they behave abnormally, these men tell me. The Iraqi drivers are worried, American soldiers are worried, but it is the duty of the soldiers to check for guns. Another checkpoint, and these Marines go on guard. The man in the truck wants to drive through, he insists. The Marines have no Arabic speaker. Our translator becomes the go-between, telling him the Marines won't allow it. The Marines have their M16s ready to fire. They've been told any vehicles approaching closer than this truck are to be, in military slang, lit up, hit by a hail of bullets. The man and his passengers are eventually convinced. About 300 meters away, an example of the dangers and the firepower in Baghdad right now. We heard small arms fire. Within minutes, 2 attack helicopters rake the banks of the Tigris with rockets and machine gun fire. On the nearby bridge, the checkpoint continues.
No weapons. Okay. Thank you. Have a good day.
Marines and drivers almost oblivious to the firefight. Marines say this, quite simply, is not their job, and so they are trying, and it is a slow process, to get police to return to work and do theirs, so that Iraqis can be checked out not by US Marines, but by fellow Iraqis. Michael Holmes, CNN, Baghdad.
Straining under the weight of shabby furnishings, a car full of looters pulls away from a government ministry. Apparently slim pickings not putting plunderers off. I have no money, says Samir, no furniture in my house. I don't have a pot to cook in, but now I do. Inside Iraq's television station, a similar story. Looters searching harder to get the good stuff. Among this band of would-be rip-off merchants, frustration and anger setting in. We are living in anarchy and chaos, says Ali. Before with Saddam, at least we could sleep peacefully. We need protection. Father of 8, Jihad, shows his military pension card. All the records are gone, he says. Where can I get money to feed my family? None will admit to looting, but as we stand talking, goods gradually fill the trolley behind us, ready to be carted off. This office is typical of what we're finding around Baghdad in the government buildings. Everything has been looted that seems to be just about of any value to the people. This is another videotape, but it wouldn't be useful to anyone at home. This wouldn't work in a home VCR. Unarmed and out on the streets, policemen talk confidently of tackling the often gun-toting looters.
We can do everything. The citizens know how powerful the police are. We can lessen the chaos and control it.
Across the road, SM angrily doubts the claim. They do this just for the cameras, he says. It's a lie. As we stop to listen, a crowd gathers, pouring out their grievances. Emotions are raw, and we are barraged with a plethora of concerns. My baby is dying, says Layla. I told the US soldiers, but they don't care. Saddam was a dog, this man screams, but if the Americans don't help, we will revolt. Armed men are coming to my house and attacking my girls, pleads Najat. I came here to tell the press. Most say they are appealing to journalists because they don't know where else to go.
We have a question. We don't provide any place to ask about the missing people, because we have a lot of people, friends, our people, they are missing in the town.
No one knows what we will make and what we will do. This is the problem. We must know our future. What will we eat tomorrow?
In a tense crowd, Najat calls out to the lone policeman. I want to see you in our neighborhood. This is a catastrophe for you and us, he says, and God willing, we'll overcome it. As he leaves, the crowd echoes his words, Inshallah. With God's grace, a well-worn phrase here, speaking more to hope than certainty. Nick Robertson, CNN, Baghdad.
Last Iraqi-held town came under attack from US ground forces a short time ago, shortly after these pictures were taken. At least 15 Iraqis are thought to have been killed in the ongoing battle. A TV crew drove through the town earlier, where they found abandoned military vehicles, but a short time later, CNN's Brent Sadler and his crew came under fire.
TIKRIT, no coalition forces. TIKRIT, no fighting. Checkpoint. Okay, that's gunfire. Okay, we've just come under attack. Under attack.
They escaped with minor injuries. US troops found another arms cache in central Baghdad this morning. And this afternoon there are reports that almost 300 recovered Iraqi missiles have been found, which tested positive for chemical agents. They are also reported to have captured Saddam Hussein's half-brother close to the border with Syria. The US Secretary of State warned Iraq's neighbour against helping members